to these residential schools. Our parents could not parent us, they could not raise us, that we were savages, all these different, horrific names they placed on us. Had he not come up with residential school, we won't even have this issue today. We went through so much. And it still bothers me to talk about it because look at how many over the years have died from unresolved issues. Because in my background, in my family, there was 13 of us. And today, just my sister and I are surviving. All my brothers passed away. My sisters, and I had one sister, Rosemary. She died with a broken neck at the residential school. The nuns beat her up and threw her down a flight of stairs. And my parents were told my sister, died and whatnot. And what really hurt was when my sister died, they put her in this coffin, and the coffin was left outside the church, even up to this day. Look at what they've done to us. And I think about it, why did they do that? They killed her? That's the bottom line. Why put that coffin outside the Catholic Church? And just to let you know, people, I had to heal from the Catholic Church because we're living there for 14 years. I lived in fear for 14 years. And I seen so much that happened to my, to the other students, the other children. There was so much I seen. There was just one, I'll give you one example what I seen. Don't mind me, I still have, these feelings. I'll never totally heal. As long as I deal with everything one day at a time. And having my Creator, my spirituality, Siksika, traditional way of life, that's what keeps me going. And to be grateful. I'm a survivor. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic in recovery of 4 to 7 years. So I have so many good things. I look at what has done for me in my healing, because a lot of it was so painful. I had to deal with everything. This one time, this nun, I always remember her name, Sister Jill, and one of the women, one of my fellow students, she's not alive today. That nun, I don't know what was happening. This was in a hallway. And next thing, the nun was just screaming, calling her names, and we couldn't even help her. She grabbed that picture off the wall. You people must know Chief Crowfoot. To me, I always looked at him. He was our king of 3 to 7. He was the main person that signed this agreement with the government to do with 3 to 7. And there were other dignitaries from different reserves. But anyway, she grew that picture off the wall, and she was screaming, and she was speaking in French. They always spoke in French. This way we did not understand what they were saying. And the main word that I've always thought about was savage. They said sauvage, meaning savage in French. And Sister Jill threw it on the floor. She was stamping on it. The glass broke. And it really hurt me. And she told my friend, You're so ugly. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You're ugly like Chief Crowfoot. And talking about it, it still bothers me. Because last week we celebrated our 3 to 7 day. And I really had to do a lot of healing to forgive them. But anyway, we couldn't even help her. We were too scared. Seen so much. And all what I learned in my line of work, when you see abuse happening, it's called vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma really hurt me too, really made me sad, whatnot. Each time I seen something like that happen, and with what I went through, I experienced all forms of abuse. Mental, physical, emotional, sexual abuse, name it. Each and every one of those experiences did something to my spirit, did something to me. And I was so scared, lived in fear for 14 years. When I came out of residential school, I was so angry. I was so upset. I couldn't even express myself. I kept shoving everything under the rug. And I started to drink. I never drank when I was, whenever I went home to be with my parents. I never drank, and my father disowned me. And he used to tell me, I never raised you with alcohol. I came from a very sheltered home. I never seen my parents drink. My parents were very spiritual. They were members of the Horn Society in Siksika, different spiritual societies. And I always thank the Creator. He built that foundation for me before I went to residential school. I would have went crazy in there. And I was forced to pray in English. And I was forced to sing in Latin. And I learned French. I lost it over the years. But anyway, with all that, everything what I went through came out in anger. Became an alcoholic, drank on the streets of Calgary. Then my husband and I went to Winnipeg. That's where I really hit my bottom. But I knew in my heart there was something happening. I couldn't pinpoint. I would wake up in the morning. I just hated myself when I looked at myself in the mirror. But I never thought about suicide. And so I went to treatment in Winnipeg, and then I came out. I started going to AA. And this AA is really doing something for me. And my husband and I, we come to Brooks to attend these AA meetings, maybe on a Tuesday or a Thursday. We always have to, look after myself and my husband. And I'm always so fortunate to have my husband because he's a survivor too. And to have one another, it's really something. We share everything. Sometimes I'd be thinking, and my husband would tell me something, and we were thinking alike. But to have someone like my husband today, I'm so fortunate. And we try our best to, give our children, because they never really seen us like to be drinking. And yesterday, our oldest daughter took us out for our anniversary, which is today. Today's our wedding anniversary. And I said, my girl, wow, I forgot about our anniversary, which is today, but she wanted to take us out last night up in Calgary because I've been focusing so much all week, last week in Siksika, to help people. I help people from all walks of life. Because end of the day, when your feelings are hurt, those feelings are the same. And that's how come I focus, especially on our young people. So this morning, my husband, when I was praying and smudging, he said, oh, we forgot our anniversary. And I told him, well, we're too busy doing all this work, for people. When people ask me to come and speak, I don't hesitate because that's how come I wrote my book, to educate society, to understand, and also to look at the history, everything, every policy the government put on us. We suffer trauma. And that's how come when I'm doing work with people, I do a lot of healing for them. The program I had in Siksika was called Strengthening the Spirit. I've been helping people to find that spirit. If I hadn't found my spirit, I won't even be here today. I would have died like the rest of my siblings. It's so good. It's so beautiful to have the spirit back in here. And I'm very accountable to my Creator. I acknowledge the Creator every morning and at night too. I always ask for protection, for guidance, everything, direction. And I pray, for my people, not just in Siksika, across the nation. And that's how come it took a big risk to write a book, because my book, it's all over the world. As a matter of fact, I'm going to write another one. The name of my book is called My Name is Shield Woman, A Hard Road to Recovery, Heal and Whatnot, to educate society, not to look at us like we're animals or savages. Government did not understand right from day one. Our structures were in place. Our ceremonies were in place. We had a good life without residential school introduced. They did so much damage. I had to forgive them. I really had to forgive them. And my father, I mentioned, he disowned me. He said, my girl Gukuna, you were never raised with alcohol. What's wrong with you? Oh, he didn't like to see me drunk, drinking. And he didn't understand my siblings too. Each and every one of my siblings died from those unresolved issues that happened to them. As a matter of fact, I had a brother who was killed in Brooks. He was hit by the train, and he eventually died. There was so much tragedy, horrific things that happened to my family. I really had to look at everything, piece by piece. I went back to when I came home from Manitoba, I went and I went to all these different churches, the Mormons, Jehovah's, all these different denominations. None of them did anything for me. until I went back to my elders, my spiritual leaders. I asked my father for forgiveness. He was so happy. I explained to him what happened to me. And I told him that's why my brothers are not here today. They did not have that opportunity to heal. My brothers used to come and work here. The last name was Morshida. I forget the man that used to come and pick up my brothers to work on the potato fields, and other people from Siksika. They worked here and then they would come home. They had money. They didn't even buy anything. They would just start drinking. Little bit of money my brothers got, they were drinking. So I really had to look at my family, like everything. It was hurtful to really look at my family. And I was so happy today. I made amends with my father. But my mother died when I was quite young. And then I had my grandmother. She always prayed for me. She was ashamed of me too when I was drinking. And she said, well, one day she knew I was going to quit drinking. It's such a powerful disease, the most powerful disease in the world. And I quit smoking years ago too. And even smoking is another deadly disease. So I've been doing my best educating, and especially the non-Aboriginal people. I speak at different universities and whatnot, and I've been on the Missing and Murdered Women Committee, National Committee. I do a lot of volunteer work, especially at home, to help the young people. My focus to help them to take a good look at themselves. They have such a rich heritage, rich culture. So in my book, I dedicate it to them, that it's important to know their identity, to really help them find that spirit that was lost from one generation to the next. We have so much work to do in Canada. If they really mean it, like from the Prime Minister, if he really means it, to find ways to help people to be part of what they're going to do for us. I don't like that lip service, because I hear it all the time. Because the reality, they could only come to the reserves and see the reality of our people. Our people walking down the road, picking up empties. One time, my oldest grandchild, Sean, we were driving down the road in Siksika, and he said, Grandma, why are these people doing all this? And I explained to him. I told him, the truth comes from me. What I share with you, what I went through, residential school, and what I did, I'd rather have you and your siblings to hear it from me. I never paint a pretty picture of my experience, what was done to me at the residential school. I explained it to my grandson. When people do that, they pick up empties, they take them to the bottle depot. They're always looking for the next drink. Grandma used to do that, and I looked at him, and he cried. And he said, I'm so happy, Grandma. He was so happy that I don't drink anymore. One time we were driving through Gleason. All these people were hanging around, and my grandson said, all these different characters, Grandma, look at them. And I always explain everything to them. Look at all these people. Why are they acting like that? Why are they behaving that way? And I explained what alcohol does. In a bottle of alcohol, there's 99 evil spirits. I was one of those evil spirits when I was drinking. And it was all about the evil spirit, and I explained it to him. They're looking, they're finding a way to cure that hangover. It's scary. The other night I was telling my husband, oh, I'm so thankful I'm sober. What really scares me today, when I think back, are the blackouts. Each time I drank, I had a blackout. The very first time I went to school in Red Deer, I was crawling up the nurse's residence. Didn't even know. House mother gave me heck the next morning. I quit the nursing school. I went home, went to Calgary, started this secretarial training. I didn't even finish. Everything I tried to do, I failed. And here, that's what I had to look at, what alcohol did to me. And I'm never ashamed to speak about my drinking because it's so scary. It's so devastating. You're not yourself. You're one of those evil spirits in that bottle of wine, Lysol, whatever we drank, just to kill that pain. But that pain got worse, especially when you wake up in the morning. You're so scared. Times I was in jail, I was so scared. Well, what happened? I don't know how many times I was in jail. Then one winter, first part of December, I forget what year it was, I was taken to Fort Saskatchewan Women's Jail. My husband didn't even know I was in jail those 30 days. So with me, honesty. I learned honesty in my program. The truth. To be truthful. And that's what it's all about, this truth and reconciliation. The truth, it's finally coming out. How many decades and centuries it took, finally, each and every one of my fellow survivors. I really prayed for them today because I know exactly what they've been through. And a lot of the elders my age, they haven't even started healing. They're still angry, they're sick, they're handicapped, they cannot move forward. I'm always so thankful that I found my Creator, that I had to take a good look at me. One day when I woke up March the 15th in Winnipeg, my husband, he was passed out on a bed. Even up to this day, I don't know who paid for our room because we were drinking and whatnot. And we were at this all-night Salisbury house. And this young Caucasian man was sitting at the counter. He was laughing. And I thought, of course, right away, I thought he was laughing at me. I went up to him. I pulled his hair, threw him on the floor, kicked him, and I ran out because the waitresses were calling the police. My husband followed me. There again, I was in a blackout. The nearest hotel was Winnipeg Inn, the most expensive hotel in Winnipeg, right on Portage and Main. And even up to this day, I don't know, because we had no money. I don't know who paid for our room. Woke up in that, my husband was passed out. I was in that room, and I opened the liquor cabinet, took out a bottle of, I don't know what it was, whiskey or vodka, opened it, made myself a drink, went to the washroom, took some water, poured it, drank that first glass. My husband was already passed out. And I went to make the second, glass. I was sitting on the edge of the bed. And this voice came to me and said, called me by my Blackfoot name. Tsänestis kidakit sawatsemi. Tsänestis kiakukitu maupihpa. Kept talking to me in Blackfoot. I took that glass of water, went into the bathroom, I poured it down the sink. That was my last drunk, March the 15th, 1974. And I was waking up, my head, couldn't sleep, I was so hungover. Kept hearing that voice. So finally, around 6 or 7 o'clock, my husband woke up. And I told him, I'm gonna quit drinking today. He looked at me and he said, you're always saying that. I told him, I am. Believe me, I am. I'm so sick, I was just crying. That was a spiritual awakening for me to do something. And the voice, the Spirit spoke in Blackfoot, told me, aren't you tired of your drinking? When are you going to do something about your drinking? You've got to think of your kids and whatnot. So we walked to that general hospital. They had a detox center. I couldn't even drink water, whatnot, had no money. My husband couldn't even go out and get me soup. And that's when I really hit my bottom. I had to do something. Then we went for treatment for 3 months. Then that's how I started my recovery. I went like this to the Creator. Please, nukspamokit. Please help me. I'll do anything. I want to do something about my life. Please. Kept begging and crying. If I hadn't had the spiritual awakening with my Creator, I won't be sitting here today. I would have died. So thankful. That's what I mean. I'm a grateful alcoholic in recovery. Because look at all what I had to deal with. Sexual abuse. I had to see a psychologist. I went to the healers, went to the ceremonies. And my father was still alive. He was so happy. My grandma, they were so happy. And it just took that, feeling from me to ask the Creator to forgive me. And I asked my dad, I made amendments with my father. to forgive me. He felt so good. Grandma, all my relatives in Siksika. And that's how come I'm not ashamed to share what I went through and what I needed to do. Because when you find that Creator, the Spirit, it's a beautiful life. I really had to forgive. And I had a sister who was murdered in Siksika. August of 1970. I have a cousin who's been missing in Duck Lake, Saskatchewan. I was still at the residential school in 1961. We still don't know what happened to her. I had a friend from Hobima. We found her in her basement in Calgary. She lived in Acadia. Oh, her daughter called me. I went, found her in her basement. My friend was raped and whatnot. There was already maggots in her system. Her file was closed. I had a niece who was killed in Calgary by our close relatives. And I had another niece. We still don't know what happened to her. She went missing near Rocky Mountain House, Rhonda. So all these women that were so dear to me, that's how come I've been an advocate for women, my women. That's how come I opened a Wutan shelter in Calgary. My grandma was around, still around. She died at 103. And she gave the name. Awutan is a sacred shield in Blackfoot. And she said, my girl, that's your name. It gave you that name. The shelter is called the Wutan shelter. And it was really difficult to open a women's shelter in Calgary. Didn't matter which community we went to. We had a lot of support from aldermen, forget his name now. But anyway, the late Barb Scott was a council member. Mayor Al Dur, yeah, and Bob Hawksworth, and my brother Ralph Klein, the premier, that one day he knew I was going through such a hard time. He went like this to the table, to his caucus in Calgary. We met at the McDougall Center, told them, my sister has been having a hard time to open a shelter. From this day on, you're going to start helping her with capital funding, everything. I always bring up my brother, how he recognized the importance of our own shelter. I worked in a shelter in Calgary. They did not fulfill the spiritual needs of our women. So I seen too much in that shelter, how my women were treated. Especially the spiritual part was lacking. We had to come up with a program that would accommodate everything to do with themselves. And it's all about residential school, whatnot. So Awutan Shelter, it's on McLeod Trail in Calgary. It's been in operation 27 years. And then in Siksika, we opened another place called Kamutani Center, meaning a new way, survival. Strader Crowfoot was the chief. He gave us this building to start training, to start working with our people. And while I was working in Calgary on Awutan Shelter, I was on the Mayor's Task Force on Domestic Violence. And then Strader appointed me to be on this committee, 3 Ego Wellness Society, and it's to do with prevention and promotion, like family and domestic violence and whatnot. And I've been with this committee since February 1991. And all my work has a lot to do with focusing to help my people, because the importance that we're here, it's so important to find your purpose. Right now I'm experiencing my spirits. They're on my back. They're with me, speaking. They always come and support me whenever I talk about this very sensitive issue, what happened to me. And I really look at honesty. To me, it's so important, because when I was drinking, oh my gosh, I don't think any of you would put up with me when I was drinking if you were around. I was the worst liar, I was the worst thief, everything. I always wanted to fight. I was very violent. Anger in my healing, being sexually abused, that's how it came out. I wanted to fight the world. I didn't care who. I wanted to fight with people, especially the bullying I went through at the residential school, being half Cree. I was really put down by my fellow students, whatnot. And I'm writing a second book. I'm working on the DNA, plus all these special teachings were left for me from my parents, my grandmother. My ancestors came from Saskatchewan, and they came to Medicine Hat, then to the edge of the reserve, Siksika and Bisano. And Siksika adopted my ancestors. And that's how my father and my mother, it was a forced marriage. They didn't know each other, so they got married. And it's really, it's really scary too when you've been bullied. And look at it's happening everywhere. In society, I see it, I feel it. And just like I used to have to prove myself. And today I don't. I don't have to prove myself of who I am. I know who I am today. I can stand up for myself. Nobody can push me around. None of this abuse. And that's what I mean. People need to understand what we've been through. Lot of the students I went to school with September 1950. Just 4 of us or around. The rest died from the residential school trauma. Horrific deaths. Cirrhosis, suicide, accident, everything. That's how come. I'll say again, I'm so fortunate. I'm so thankful to be a survivor of what I went through. And to me, I felt so good when the young lady called me to come out today. I always appreciate when I'm asked to go speak of what happened to us. I'm only one survivor. There's so many across the nation. We started watching that event in Ottawa, some of the women that were speaking. We have to, as First Nations people, I'm a Blackfoot Treaty woman. I'm so proud that I'm here. This area, to be part of what's going on. To me, to see that day, finally, something is designated by the federal government to have this day. I know so many people are emotional today. There have been events too back home. They asked me the other day to come and speak. I told them, I'm sorry, I'm already committed. I'm going to Brooks. I was so happy to make that commitment that I'm going to be here today to share, the experience I went through, to be a survivor. And I'm here to continue to educate. And I had to forgive the bullies today. Most of them are not alive in Siksika. And what I found out that they were hurting. They were hurting more than me why they bullied me. So I had to forgive them because what they went through and what happened to them. So I really had to take a good look at me. Finally, I could look at myself in the mirror today and say, Ruth, you're okay. Look at what you're doing, not just for me, benefit for my children, my family, the clan system I come from in Siksika. Siksika were so good to adopt my ancestors into the clan system, and they called us the Cree clan. That's from my mother's side, and on the other side it's the White Elk, Eagle Rib clan. So I'm very fortunate to grow up in that era, and I still practice, as I'm still practicing my spiritual traditional ways, and I'm always so thankful. I was blessed with the white buffalo pipe. It was transferred to me about 20 years ago, and that's how come that devotion. I'm answerable to his Tibet appeal every day to give me that the guidance. And I work at the Old Sun Community College in Siksika too, every Tuesday and Friday. I was hired as an elder to work with the students and the staff, also to really look at healing for our young people. And it's really something at the college, what they're teaching about our culture, all these different societies, the elders, they come, and for me to do healing circles for our young students. And it's going to be really something for them to have a balanced life, like healthy lifestyles and education. So these are some of the things we really have to look at, especially for the youth. And for the survivors, they're really going to have to start looking at themselves. Put in more resources to do, healing. Because with that program I was doing, finding, acknowledging the Holy Spirit to help them, to have the Spirit come back into their hearts. Those are one of the things that can really help our people to come to terms, to forgive, and to start taking responsibility, especially when you look at the changes that are going to start happening. With the program that I was doing, it's 16 weeks 2 evenings a week in the evening. And the program, the course was, it was recognized by the province of Alberta, and I really worked well with our former judge, Eugene Creighton from the Blood Reserve. He really felt that was a need for our people to help them, to have the spirit back in here. That's how come the program takes 16 weeks, 2 evenings a week. And it really is good because so many of the young women in Siksika took the program. Some of them have gone on to secondary schools, universities, and whatnot. It's so good. Oh, you can do anything in the world once you have the Creator in here. So once again, I'm so happy to be here, Mayor, and your council, and the community of Brooks. This is my home area. My husband is he's been working on this project, the Blackfoot, how would I put it? Our land to do with the Blackfoot starts from south of Saskatchewan River all the way down the border, Alberta, Saskatchewan, south of Edmonton, along the Rockies, all the way down to Yellowstone Park. And my husband would love to get it published. He's been doing so much research. I told him, you can get it published through Amazon, because I went through Amazon publisher to publish my first book, and now I'm going to have my second book. It's very interesting. He has all the maps, everything. That's what I mean. This is my territory. I love coming out. I never say, I'm going to Brooks. Me, that's in Napo. I'm going to Brooks like in Blackwood. Me, take it up. And we always come out, to Brooks. And when my nephews were playing hockey, we used to come out. They played against Brooks, the senior men's team. So I always feel good when I come to Brooks. That's how come I didn't hesitate when I got the invitation. So I'm hoping you got some worthwhile information from a survivor, from Siksika, 3 to 7 woman. I don't like those words, Aboriginal and all these, because to us, I was raised with being a treaty woman, and I'm proud to be a treaty woman. Today, I'm proud. I wasn't very proud many years ago, but today, it's all coming from my heart to share what it was like, the hurt and pain. And also we were put through so much shame. When I was drinking in Calgary, oh my gosh, look at that drunken squaw, look at her, good for nothing. All those remarks, and I didn't give a hoot. Because I was so hurt, I was so angry, I wanted to get back to everybody. But today it's so different. I want to share in a good way for us to, to share what we've been through. So I hope I covered, a lot of information with you gentlemen. And once again, it was such a beautiful drive coming down. My husband, oh, you'll be okay. Oh, I told him, don't worry. I'll be okay. I'm sober. So with that, I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Ruth Skoplock. Thank you for sharing your stories and your path to healing. It's truly emotional hearing these stories.
Shut this off.
At this time, I'd like to open the floor to any questions that people may have on Facebook.
Is it appropriate for me to start, Richard, or do you have some questions?
Currently, we don't have any
Okay.
questions.
Elder Ruth, the 14 years in the residential school, one of
14
the
years.
14 years.
Yeah.
One of the things that in my schooling, I never got to hear about that, and how does that need to change? Because my children and my grandchildren need to understand this story as well. What kind of things do you see that need to be done in that area?
I really feel it's important, to start sharing what happened. I don't know if you heard about Willie Wilton Littlechild, Murray Sinclair, and Judy Wilson. They were the three commissioners that worked on TRC. And when I was working with the missing and murdered women, Wilton, he asked for my book and I gave it to him. And he was really working hard to have my book in the Alberta education to put it in their curriculum. And they were really working hard to have other books to be used in the education area. I think it's about time, because when I went to launch my book, I went on a Greyhound to Winnipeg with my little great-granddaughter. I told my husband, I'm going to go just to experience and to go back to Winnipeg where we sobered up. I'll take Samara with me. I just wanted to enjoy that ride. So we went, and guess what? When I checked into that hotel right on Portage, it wasn't Winnipeg Inn, it was a different hotel. When my girl and I went in there, guess whose picture was on the wall? A great big picture of my grandma. And she had one of her grandchildren on her back with her shawl. Of course, I started crying. Samara said, Grandma, why are you crying? This is your grandma, Margaret. So I checked in. Then I called my husband and I told him, Grandma's picture, Margaret, is on that wall. And spiritually, my life is based on spirituality. I told my husband, Grandma's spirit is here with me, especially to look at her picture. That picture is very famous. I see it all over. And Grandma is here. So she's keeping an eye on me. She doesn't want me to go back to drinking. Look at that. Her picture, of all places, for me to see her picture. And Grandma is with me all the time, even sitting here. And one of my cousins, a young cousin, was in jail in Spy Hill. His parents went to see him, and George. And I guess they have these, cubicles And really, they don't have pictures on the wall. When they went in there to visit, when they went in to visit their son, Grandma's picture was on that wall. They were looking. And then they spoke to the guard. They asked him, who put up this picture? When did you guys put it up? What are you talking about? There's no picture. Because they don't have pictures, I guess, in the, Spy Hill. They're all bare, white, gray, whatever. So those are the things. And George told his son, Jody, Grandma is with you here too, in spirit. Pray every morning. Give Grandma thanks to the Creator. You're surrounded by our ancestors. They all come from the other side when we're having ceremonies, from a spirit world. I'm going to have a ceremony in Siksika on October 23rd. An all-night big smoke is going to be on all night. I'm so happy. It's not about me. It's about everyone, even non-Aboriginal people. It's for everybody, and especially the virus, to blow over. Creator to give us something to really help us to heal. So I made that big vow. So I'm going to follow through. Everything is in place. So that's what my ancestors from the other side, that's what they want me to do. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's a big sacrifice. I'm going to have some of the elders. We're not going to have too many people. It's going to be in a big place. We have to be aware of those social distancing, protection. We're going to have a feast. So it's for all of us, not just, me and my family. It's for everyone, because we all need that, the healing. We all need that protection, the guidance, and that's what my ancestors want me to do from the other side. So I'm looking forward to it.
We do have a few comments on Facebook now, so I just want to read a couple of them. So one of them said, that was a very interesting and insightful. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you so much for sharing your story. You're an amazing woman. We do have a couple of questions so far. So the first one is, was the residential school the brick building on Siksika? I don't know if you're familiar,
A brick building?
A brick, yes.
The one I went to, it was torn down, outside of Clooney, outside the town of Clooney. It's no longer there, but some of those buildings are there. That house, they called it Father's house, where the priests lived, and the church, it's still there. But the residential school, the building, it's not there anymore. Okay. But the one in Gleason, the old son, I mentioned I worked there. It was a residential school. It was an Anglican residential school. But they really worked on it, and last week they celebrated 30 years since the college was opened, and the other 20 years, that's when we started to get post-secondary funding. And there's other residential schools. Some of them were agency schools. There's one near the Crowfoot Ferry. I don't know if you've ever been to Crowfoot Ferry. West of Pisano, Crowfoot area. There was one down in a valley across from the coal mines in Siksika. It was a building, and the foundation, it's still there, because we went there to look at it. My husband Francis and I, we took our grandchildren, and you could still see what they left there, some beds and some kitchen, stuff, dishes, pots and pans. And that's where my father went. I guess they didn't really have any academic courses. It was how to farm, whatnot. And I think they had a priest, couple nuns, and they were also abused, there. And they didn't really learn how to speak, English, and no schooling. They had to work hard. And I think my father, he wasn't even there that long. And also there's, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was 5 residential schools in Siksika. And Alberta has the most residential schools. And so many, I forget how many in Alberta, survivors. And we really have to look at these survivors and ask them, what are some of the things you want us to help you with? Because with those attitudes from the government, the Indian agents and whatnot, missionaries, we were never given choices. I didn't even know how to make a choice. I always have to say, oh, can I do this? Is it okay? Because at the residential school, you had to ask, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I blow my nose? All these things that for us to survive, to heal, to learn. The program I was doing was based on so many things, what our people will learn, what to do. Give them choices, give them compliments, because all the put downs we went through, the emotional abuse. They used to tell me, oh, you're good for nothing, you're not going to amount to anything. Look at you, you're so dirty. I felt so dirty for the longest time. Didn't matter how many times I washed my face, I always felt dirty. Till I really look at those abuses. So it all takes time for our people to feel good, that they can do anything, they can conquer anything, everything. But please listen to us, especially across the country. And that's how come many of my people are drinking on the streets. You know, what they went through, that hurt and pain. So I really understand and I support them where they're at, that they have that potential, that they can do it. Believe in them, because the Spirit, that's what they want us to share with society. When you communicate with the spirits, oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, that's what keeps me going.
The other part to that question was, for the residential school, when you were there, did you have to live there all the time, or were you able to leave and visit your family?
We stayed there most of the time. We went home Christmas. There were some weekends we went home. We were on the holidays, like summer holidays. We went home. But then there were some that they did not have parents. They stayed there all the time. I was fortunate to have my parents pick me up and go home. And I was lucky to have my parents and my grandparents, my relatives, and whatnot.
If you don't mind, I actually have a question myself. I think you answered the first part, but the first part is, if we know somebody who's right now hurting, how can we help them start their spiritual journey? And those of us who are listening who are survivors, how can they help? How can they help themselves start that journey where you start yours in Winnipeg?
Well, you mean to help someone who's hurting today?
Yes.
I would go like, I'm gonna go back to Siksika. I don't know. There's something happening, I think at 2 o'clock, all afternoon, all evening. I'm gonna go. And if there are survivors there that are hurting, I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna tell them, I understand what you're going through. I'm here to help you. You can call me, because my phone rings off the hook all the time. And I'm always happy when someone calls me. And I'll just tell them, here's my number, or come to my house, and I'm going to be there for you. Because I understand. It's scary, especially when you're having nightmares of what happened to you. That's how come for me, when that happened, having those nightmares when I was drinking, I just wanted to drink more to kill that pain. But I'll be there for them. Yeah.
Thank you. We don't have any more questions at this point, but just leave your comments on our Facebook page. And if we can't get to you right now, we'll definitely submit them to Elder Ruth Scotlock, and then she'll be able to answer them in the future. Yes, Al.
Elder Ruth, I do have a question. When we come across some people, and definitely, in the center of cities, and they're on the side of the sidewalk, and we know they're hurting, what can we do to help them?
Can you say that question again? I'm deaf on this side. Look at what the nuns did to me.
Sure,
A
I'll
big
try again.
scar.
So when we see people maybe on the street and we understand they're hurting, as you just have explained it, how can we as individuals help that person right at that time? What suggestions do you have for us?
Well, all you have to do is tell them that you're there to help, and if they would like to get some help. I don't know if you have counseling services here. You can tell them to go, and I don't know what programs you really have I know you have a shelter, but any other way, or if they can, in Siksika, we have the Indian Residential School Program. I can give you the number. It's 403-734-5686. You can call, and if someone could come out and help, or if you want me to come out, I'm quite open. And just to let them know that you feel for them. And one thing, when non-Aboriginal people tell our people, I understand what you're going through, you don't tell them that because you don't really understand. Just tell them, I feel for you. I can help you in any way I can. would you be interested to have someone come from Siksika to spend time with you? That's how come a lot of our people don't last long on jobs. The first money they get, that was about, they want to cover the pain. So if we're going to give them that number to Siksika, maybe one of those people can come out, or I can even come out, and be good to have some kind of a program like that here. I was just talking to a lady downtown this morning. She was from Saskatchewan. She's been living here, her and her husband, for such a long time. I told her I'm going to the city hall to speak. I didn't get her name, but she's been living here. They've been working in Brooks all these years. So something, if you can have some kind of a program, start up small, have some of our people come and work here, that would be really something. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions at this point? Okay. Well, there are no other questions, Elder Ruth Skopal, so thank you so much for coming in today. We really honor your presence today.
And I would be more than happy, Mayor, if somehow to look at a pilot. See how it would help, because there's so many First Nations people that live here from different parts of the country. Yeah, would be beneficial to help them.
Thank you very much for that suggestion. And I think one of our initiatives to hear you speak and to try to understand what we can do to work
Yeah.
together. And I think that is one of our ways to begin to listen and then begin to take action by working together. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming and being so truthful and honest with us. I think that's something we need to hear. I know I need to hear it to understand. And so thank you so much for being here today.
Well, I thank all of you too today. Dan Klein, are you related to my brother Ralph Klein? Oh, okay. Oh, he was a great man.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Elder Ruth Skopal.
Okay, thank you very much. It never fails. Each time I talk about my experience, I cry. Yeah. Okay, what did Joel?